Godzilla from the get-go was a serious film about the horrors of nuclear war and facing the sins made during World War II. It's a gritty film with plenty of dark moments that still haunt the minds of viewers even 70 years after its creation. Though the King of the Monsters has had its fair share of silly films throughout the years. We've seen him fly, we've seen him slide on his tail, we've seen him gain magnetic powers and even shake hands. But what's not lost are those underlying themes that give these stories purpose, like Godzilla vs. Hedorah's themes on the effects pollution was having on the environment and the Japanese civilians, or Godzilla's Revenge, a commentary on latchkey children and absent working parents in post-war Japan. Each one has had something that gives the silliness purpose, meaning that we can see the genuineness and passion behind the craftsmanship of these films, with perhaps the biggest thanks given to Ishiro Honda, the mastermind behind the classics. So if these can be viewed as classics that, whilst are very silly, have a deeper meaning rooting them together, why can't this? Now, I've seen a lot of people checking out the trailer, and perhaps the most common reaction is, this looks like dumb fun. I just wish there was substance to the story. And to that I say, why can't it have depth? I, of course, see a lot of action in the trailer, and that stuff looks great, but I also see a lot of potential in delivering an impactful and emotional story. If you look beneath the flashy neon lights and the pink Zilla, we see a very personal story about the development and growth of Kong as a character. In Birth of Kong, we saw him mourn the loss of his parents, and in Skull Island we saw him dealing with the loneliness, coming to terms with the fact that he is the last of his kind. He would observe his reflection in the lake and ponder about the day he could meet another one of his kind, looking up at the sky and dreaming about the wide world and its possibilities. And in Godzilla vs. Kong, when Gia tried to get Kong to willingly enter the Hollow Earth tunnel, she told him there may be others down there, and he jumped at even the slightest opportunity of discovering his remaining family, only to find the ruins of a Colosseum long since abandoned, laden with the bones of titans just like him. Kong has never been closer to his kind, but also never been more distant. Now, take a look at the new Empire. Kong has made a home out of the Hollow Earth and likely goes out on patrols with the hope of finding more of his kind. From the trailer we can see that not only is the Kong not the last of his kind, but there's hundreds more living in the caverns below. The problem is, they're ruled and enslaved by a tyrannical dictator who, in of himself, is a relative to Kong called the Scar King, potentially using the primate titans for food, breeding, or even mining for resources, perhaps this energy source found deep beneath the rocks. We can see the masses bear the red mark, symbolizing they are his property, the sight of which will be heartbreaking for Kong, so Kong is the only one strong enough to stand before him. Kong will have to muster the strength to defeat and potentially even kill Scar and free his people. Although it's not something he'll be able to do alone, he'll have to work together with his prior adversary, Godzilla, putting aside their differences and forgetting the sins of the past to unite for a better future. The film will delve into the emotional repercussions of having to face off with another relative after searching his whole life for more of his kind, to fill that void left by the death of his family and free the oppressed from the dictatorial overlord. What we're presented with is a tragedy of classic literature, something in the vein of Shakespeare with thematic similarities to Macbeth. It's even given the same beats as the Book of Moses, of a man once exiled returning to free his people from a tyrannical ruler. That gives the underlying plot of Godzilla Kong an almost biblical quality, a myth passed down from thousands of years of teachings about the one titan that stood before overwhelming odds. This teaches us to never give up and stand up for those that don't have a voice, and to never forget the strength of union. If there are those in need, be their Kong. And at a time when it feels like global tensions are at the highest point they've been for decades, I think it's an important message. Not only this, but the story presents Kong with an orphaned child, meaning we'll have to see him face his greatest challenge yet: fatherhood, having to raise this child with no predisposition on how to even be a parent. His parents died when he was a baby, so what does it even mean to be a father? Though it's certain that in this child he sees a reflection of himself, lost, alone, and frightened. So, even based on this short teaser, we're already faced with some pretty interesting themes, exploring persecution, oppression, slavery, but also unity, as well as fatherhood, and what that actually entails. Yet, all these elements are being ignored. What, because Godzilla runs? A lot of people refuse to look beyond the surface and embrace the monsters themselves as characters. In these stories, the Titans are just as important, if not more so, than the humans. They go through the most change, growing and evolving as characters, sometimes literally. And in the new Empire, it's been confirmed we're going to spend more time up close and personal with the Titans than ever. Non-verbal storytelling has been a part of cinematic history since the very beginning with silent films. It's the oldest filmic art form. But a good example of recent non-verbal storytelling is Primal, where we follow Spear, a caveman, and Fang, a Tyrannosaurus, both of whom lose their families early on and decide to join forces to survive their unforgiving environment together. It's action-packed, emotional, and gripping, and I can totally imagine this dynamic happening for Godzilla and Kong. This gives us a look into how well something like the new Empire can be if done well. There's clear thought behind the themes, morals, and execution here, yet it's being dismissed as dumb fun, simply because it places an emphasis on the action. In reality, both the action and the story can be equally important. It can have an interesting story with substance, whilst also having light-hearted elements and well-shot action. Going back to the Showa films, yes, they had silly over-the-top action, but as Godzilla fans, we're able to see below the surface at the themes and subtext, something most others don't attempt to recognize. Those that dismiss the franchise as a dumb series of kids' films where men in suits step on toy cars are currently just as bad as the ones reducing the new Empire to simple dumb fun. I feel like they're not giving the filmmakers enough credit here. And yes, while there will be plenty of exciting action in the film, that doesn't mean the story can't be something special. So that's just my thoughts on the current discussion of whether or not Godzilla Kong the New Empire is just dumb fun. I think if you look beyond the surface, you can find plenty of substance here, and definitely a story worth telling. But what do you think about the New Empire story? Are you looking forward to it, or do you just want to see monster battles? Let us know in the comment section down below. Don't forget to subscribe and stomp the notification button to become a resident of Dangerville today. And be sure to give this video a big old Kong-sized thumbs up. I've been Alistair, and we'll see you residents in the next one.